Hi everyone, welcome back to the More YouTube channel. It's Chris back with my rant stroke thought of the day. And wow, where do I begin with this? I've talked about this before. I've talked about it so many times. Media Muppets. It falls into that category, but I don't know whether I'm going to rant about this or just, be in deep thought about it. It might be a little bit of both, but, a lot of talk about media, a lot of talk about fan-led media as well. I'm going to get right into this. Now, there's a lot of people who don't like fan-led media. They call them YouTubers and all that stuff, and it's not their game, and that's fine. I respect that. If you don't like YouTubers, you don't like fan content creators, that's absolutely fine, right? That's entirely up to you. It's your life. You live it how you want to live it. It's your game. You support it how you want to support it, right? You don't need to be abusive to those people who create it. You just leave them be, you move on, and you don't watch it, right? But I think what's happened over the last 24 to 48 hours from the mainstream media, if you ever needed proof and validation that fan-led media is needed and is required in the modern day world of media, then this is the antithesis of that. It really, really is. Alexander Isak, Liverpool. So Liverpool expressed an interest in Alexander Isak. We all know that Liverpool are interested in Isak, also interested in Isak. Loads of teams would be interested in Isak, but he plays for Newcastle now. He's got 3 years left in his contract. We don't want to sell him, and certainly don't want to sell him for anything less than 150 million quid. However, the mainstream media machine is in overdrive with why Isak should be at Liverpool, why Liverpool are going to get Isak. Liverpool, Isak, right? Liverpool, Ekitike, if they don't get Isak, they're going to bully Newcastle into getting Ekitike and all this kind of stuff. And it's all completely one-sided. There's no balance in this argument whatsoever. I've yet to see a media outlet give any kind of real balance to this whatsoever. Certainly not what I've seen doing the rounds, on the usual suspects, Sky Sports, Keith Downey's side, of course, Talk Sport, everybody else, 5 Live, probably all the same. There's not one single piece of balance in this argument. And this is where fan media is essential, in my opinion, whether you like it or not, to offer the balance. Now, what Newcastle United are sitting in this situation is this, right? They've got one of the best strikers in world football playing for them, right? They signed him when all them teams slept on him. Liverpool didn't sign him. Arsenal didn't sign him. Manchester United didn't sign him. Man City didn't sign him. Chelsea didn't sign him. None of those teams signed him, right? We signed him. We took a chance on him. People said we overpaid for him. And now they're rowing back in that because the lad has been absolutely brilliant in Newcastle. He's had some injuries too, right? No doubt about that. But he's been absolutely fantastic at Newcastle United since he's been here, right? Now, the mainstream media are so determined to sell this player from Newcastle because they still don't want to give Newcastle enough credit to say that Newcastle are now a more of a serious football club in terms of the top 6, top 4 conversation than they've ever been in the last 20 years, probably. They don't want to give us that credibility, right? Because they're all driven and focused on the narrative that Liverpool are this unbelievable utopian football club that every single player wants to go and join. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Newcastle are a bigger football club than Liverpool because factually that is incorrect. We are not a bigger football club than Liverpool. Liverpool have got way more trophies than us and are a bigger football club, right? But let me tell you this. Have you ever stopped mainstream media to think about the possibility that maybe Alexander Isak has bigger sights than Liverpool? Maybe Alexander Isak wants to play for Barcelona or Real Madrid. Would you say they're bigger football clubs than Liverpool? Because I would say that they are, because they've lost some of their key players over the years to those very football clubs. Luis Suarez, Philip Coutinho. They nearly lost Steven Gerrard at Real Madrid if it wasn't for the off-the-pitch shit that he thought he would have got into. He probably would have went and signed for Real Madrid as well. Trent Alexander-Arnold's just left them to go to Real Madrid, much to their complete vitriol towards him as a player that's given them over 400 appearances and won them trophies as well. So you haven't talked about anything about that at all. It's all about how Isak would leave little old Newcastle to go to big Liverpool, right? We've just beat Liverpool in the cup final to win the Carabao Cup. Now, you can dismiss the Carabao Cup all you want. And, when you see the likes of Paul Scholes dismiss it, not giving any credibility at all, which is arrogant and snobby. And that's a player who was one of the best players of his generation, right? Unbelievable footballer. Not a very good pundit, in my opinion. Lacks the understanding and the empathy and the impartiality. That's the key word here. The mainstream media lack impartiality to offer balance to the argument, even when they're doing punditry on games. They do a game, they could do, I don't know, Newcastle versus Leeds, and they'll have Manchester United or Liverpool pundits in the studio because Liverpool are playing at 4 o'clock. And there's absolutely no impartiality or no discussion point cue those teams prior. They get 10 minutes talk, and their game kicks off, and then the minute that game finishes, they shut it and they go straight after the big game, in their opinion. And it creates this viewpoint and amongst other fans that there's this elite special cartel, or the greedy six, or the top six, or the red cartel, or whatever you want to call them, in the Premier League. That the Premier League and the mainstream media channels only really care about Liverpool, Manchester City, Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester United, and Spurs. They're the main teams that they care about. They don't care about anybody else, regardless of how successful they've been on the pitch, regardless of what trophies that they've won. They still don't care. They hated it when Leicester City won the Premier League. They glorify all as a Cinderella story because it was a brilliant story. How no one's made a movie about that yet is beyond me. Some of the shit movies that have been made about stuff is, Leicester City's title win is there to be made. There's no doubt about it. But the mainstream media, no matter how much they gushed about it in the open, they hated it behind the scenes because it took away from, the glitz and the glamour and the sexy clubs that they want to continuously promote. And Newcastle United are on an upward trajectory. There's no doubt about that at all. We bought some brilliant players that no other team went for. And now, because we bought them and progressed them under a really good progressive coach, that apparently they should leave us and go and sign for those football clubs that weren't interested in before. Isak should go and play for Liverpool. Bruno should go play for City. Tonali should go and play for Arsenal, whatever, right? Whichever way you want to spin it. It's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. But this is why fan media to me is essential. It has to be a balance. You have to talk to people with balance. I know fan media are biased towards their clubs, right? They are. But there is no scenario right now where mainstream media, to me, that I can see with my eyes and hear with my ears, where they're offering an even balance to the argument. They drag Newcastle fans onto these shows, like the overlap. They drag Leon from Newcastle Fan TV, and I had a go at him, and they try to take the piss out of him. Matty's been on Talk Sport and stuff before, and they all try and gang up on him, take the piss out of him like he shouldn't be there, And it's not right. It isn't right. You have to have a fair balance and a fair conversation about this situation. Newcastle United finished in the top 5 last season and got in the Champions League. That's the second time in 3 years. Manchester United finished 15th, and Spurs were just below them, I think. Yes, they won the Europa League, but Spurs were terrible, man. Spurs were awful. Manchester United were awful. Manchester United can't sign a piece of paper, never mind players at the minute. But still, the narrative is still players would rather go to Manchester United than a Newcastle or a Crystal Palace or an Aston Villa or something like that. And it just doesn't make any sense. They're living in the past, these pundits, and probably because the majority of them probably are Liverpool fans, are Manchester United fans, are Arsenal fans, and they lack the ability to be impartial when they're talking about football. The argument here for Alexander Isak. Now, Newcastle hold all the cards right now in this situation, right? All of this talk about power plays and flexes and all this other nonsense is all fueled and over-exacerbated by the fact that they think Liverpool are the bigger club than Newcastle, right? And as I said before, they are the bigger club than Newcastle. But right now, Newcastle hold the cards. Newcastle will not be bullied into selling Alexander Isak for anything less than their true valuation of the player, which I think is closer to 150 million quid. Not 100 million, not 85 million that I saw some nonsense about the other day on social media. It'll be 150 million plus, right? And then the talk about Ekitike, Liverpool threatening Newcastle. Well, if you don't give us Isak, we'll take Ekitike. And all these Liverpool fans are whipped up. And it doesn't help the likes of Fabrizio Romano, the way they do it as well for clicks and likes and attention. They're just stoking the flames, right? Let's get this right. Newcastle United have been in talks with Ekitike and his people in Frankfurt for the past 5 or 6 days. Liverpool haven't even fucking touched base about this player. Just because you walk into the bar and think you're more handsome than the guy who's been chatting a girl up at the bar, you ain't going to leave with her. He might have put in all the groundwork. He might have made her laugh. He might have created a connection with her. He might be ready to get in the fucking Uber and go by the time you swan over wafting your fucking aftershave, guys. That's just maybe a bad analogy, but it's an analogy that works. So Liverpool can't just rock up and swing it and go, well, Liverpool, come on over. Because Ekitike might have already spoke how. He might have already spoke to some of the players. He might have already spoke to people in the game that know about Newcastle or have played for Newcastle. You saw Alan Saint-Maximin talking so highly about Newcastle. He's a French international. They may know each other. He may be talking to him. Who knows, right? This might have already been so far down the line that Ekitike has already made his decision that he wants to play for Newcastle. And it's just about how the deal is structured financially. But you don't get that in the mainstream media. There is no balance. And this is why, whether you like it or not, fan media, for me, right now in the world of football media, is an essential requirement because you have to have a fair balance. I've just said to you there, Liverpool are a bigger football club than Newcastle United, right? You know, I love Newcastle and I've supported Newcastle all my life, and I want Newcastle to sign every single player that they can. But I'm not stupid and I'm not naive. I know Liverpool are a bigger football club than Newcastle and probably a bigger draw to a lot of players. But you can't just say they're going to go there because Liverpool are interested. It takes more than being interested in a player to sign a player. You've got to put your deal together. You've got to talk to his people. You've got to make your club appeal to him. You can't just go, "Where Liverpool, come sign for us," because that might not be what the lad wants. He might want a bit more than that. He might want some more assurances about what his future development is going to be. He's been at Paris Saint-Germain, and that didn't work. He's been bitten there. He's not going to make the same mistake again. He's not going to go to a club thinking that he's going to start and then end up rotting in the reserves and go, "Fuck, I wish I never went here," because he might not get another chance to do what he's done at Frankfurt. He might be a really clever, level-headed lad. He might have good people around him advising him in that way. You know, probably not in the world of football because it's all about money and cash. But the Ekitike deal, in terms of Newcastle, is not dead. You know, they've still got the opportunity to do something there. If Sean Longstaff being sold for 15 million quid to Leeds and they're 50 million quid short, how do we not know that's the 50 million quid needed to get that deal done? And then Ekitike is a Newcastle player. And then on the back of that, if Alexander Isak doesn't want to force a move, which I don't think he will, he doesn't seem that kind of a player, and Liverpool aren't willing to pay 150 million quid, then you ain't getting him either, guys. But we've got Ekitike and Isak at the football club next season. And then what do? You know, and then the other opportunity is, if they do sign Ekitike, if he decides to go to Liverpool, you know, because he thinks that's a bigger draw, fair play, couldn't disagree with that. If he wants to do that, fair enough. There's no conversation in mainstream media about, right, Newcastle got 75 million quid there to drop on a centre forward, right? There is no conversation about, what about Gyökeres? What about Victor Osimhen, right? They'll just go straight to Osesco. They'll go straight to Arsenal will sign him, or somebody else will sign him. Manchester United will sign him. They don't actually sit and think, hang on a minute, Newcastle got 75 million quid to drop on a centre forward, right? How are they not in the conversation for Gyökeres or Osimhen, you know, or Osesco? If they're going to spend 75 million quid in Ekitike, why couldn't they get one of those three who are still all available right now? I think Osimhen's probably going to go to Galatasaray, to be fair, but if Newcastle came in and he had a chance to go to the Premier League, maybe his head would be turned in that regard, you know? But the mainstream media aren't giving Newcastle United enough credit, in my opinion, or the other clubs like Newcastle United, like Aston Villa and stuff like that as well. There seems to be a media bias towards those clubs, and the balance is not there. And that's why you need fan-led media, in my opinion, to come out there and to give you that balance. And hopefully, I'll just give you a little bit of balance in that conversation as well. I don't think it's ever going to change. I think until there's a platform created where fans can have an honest, frank, open conversation without bias and just a mutual understanding of the situation that you happen to be in the world of football right there. I don't know if that is there. It does exist. Hopefully, if it does exist, I'd love to be part of it one day. But thanks for watching, guys. Let us know what you think about this in the comments below. I always like to hear from you. Like and subscribe. Keep it evermore. I'm going to continue to do my fan-led media, whether you like it or not. I'm going to try and offer balance to the argument. And a lot of the other brilliant Newcastle United content creators out there, and other fan content creators out there, you know, the likes of True Faith, the likes of Matty, the Magpie Channel, Toon Review, Adam Pearson, Rob Rubenstein, all those guys, they offer good balance as a Newcastle United fan's perspective. Villa Park Pod, Rich and the guys, they do that as well. You know, loads of other fan, you know, based media out there who offer, you know, Alice, who talks about Manchester United, you know, they offer a different balance that isn't just driven by the bias in the media because they think Liverpool's the best club in the world, or they think Arsenal's the best club in the world, or they think Manchester United or Chelsea the best club in the world. I saw Cundy the other day talking about football food chains and all these sound bites, and the Liverpool fans are already latching onto that and using that as a stick to beat Newcastle United with. And, you know, and it's just stupid. It really, really is. It's all hyperbole and hysteria. There's no balance. There's no logical conversations about this. You know, at the minute, Alexander Isak is a Newcastle United player, and he is for the next 3 years, unless you pay the valuation to get him out of this football club, which is 150 million quid plus, or the player wants to move. At the minute, the player doesn't sound like he wants to move. He isn't forcing a move. I honestly think Alexander Isak, if he has a season next season like he had last season, could go and play for Barcelona, Real Madrid, or Bayern Munich. And I think the player himself would rather go to those three clubs over Liverpool. Liverpool fans may not want to hear that, but I think that is the case. I'm not naive and think Alexander Isak wants to stay at Newcastle for the rest of his career, but Newcastle need to get their shit together and give him a new contract. Pay him what he's worth. Always talk about Mitchell trying to shortchange him. Fuck that. Pay him what he's worth. Give him the number 9 shirt if he wants it. Keep him at the football club. then you have to pay 200 million quid for him or 250 million quid for him, right? But if Alexander Isak wants to leave this football club, we're going to find out in the next few days. But we ain't going to be bullied into selling this player by any club. In the mainstream media, you need to offer more balance. That's my take on it, guys. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Let us know what you think. Have a belter. Hopefully this all gets sorted soon. Isak stays, and maybe we do it with Ekitike. But let us know what you think and how that's going to play out as well. Have a good one. I'll see you later. Cheers.
Heroes celebrate. They have done it.